What's cracking, y'all? Welcome back to the station. Welcome back to the channel. Y'all know what it is. It's your boy, Ray G. You can find me on X at RayGQ. This is the Trinity Report, my favorite show to do, diving into the data to help you identify some receivers we should be targeting, maybe some receivers we should be trading away. And I know that right now things are looking bad. Everybody's hurt. Jefferson, A-Chan, Leighton Vander Esch, defensive play, everybody's down. It's just injury season right now in the NFL. But we're going to dive into the data, push the show back to Thursdays. I want a couple of more days to kind of take a look at everything and some really exciting stuff going on at Destination Devy. Go to destinationdevy.com, tap into what we're doing. But I know a lot of this is people are digging this. People understand it. It makes football sense, and it's backed by data. We have sort of created, and we have not sort of done it, we have created a Trinity score. It is not ready yet, but we've got a Trinity score that encompasses a lot of the things, a lot of the metrics that we've talked about. And we tested this thing back with my man Jordan Backus, who runs the analytics, does all the data stuff for us at Destination Devy. Fantastic mind. Make sure you follow JB. I'm going to actually put his link to his Twitter in the description because he's always tweeting different things out, analytical stuff, analytical data. But we've created a Trinity score that encompasses all these things, and we've tested it against fantasy success over the past 7 years, something like that, back to 2017, 2018. But we've ran the things, and some of the things that we've talked about, weighted, of course, to fantasy scoring. And we got something really cool that I can't wait to start dropping over on the website in the next couple of days. So we're going to talk about some of the players, but Trinity score is very, very close to being unveiled, which is going to be a game changer for us in the space, helping to identify the receivers that are actually doing things to score you points in crack lineups. And maybe the ones that are being valued way up here, but that Trinity score is real low, giving you an opportunity to move off of some of those assets. So very excited about that. Very soon, hopefully next week, we'll be able to start talking about that in more detail. But we are going to use the fantastic Fantasy Points data suite to tap in to some of the players that we want to talk about today. Some players that I'm a little concerned about, and some that I'm like, man, I told you Adam Thielen was going to be one that you wanted to get. So let's dive into it right now and take a look at what we have. So here we go. Actually, go back here and let's do it like this. There we go. Now I'm on the screen. So here we go. Fantasy Points data suite. Kind of little here. Let me zoom in just a little bit. See if I can make it a little bigger for you guys watching the show and not listening to it on the podcast feed. But let's start off with the first player that I want to talk about. And it's a player, we're only looking at the last 2 weeks, week 4 and week 5, to see if there are any new trends happening with these teams and with some of these players. And you see right at the top, we start with targets. That's where we lead things off with who's being targeted, who's getting the ball. It's Jamar Chase, 37% target share over the last 2 weeks. Absolutely insane, and he is producing in a major way. Got Chris Godwin, Cooper Kupp back in the fold. Got this filtered by at least 10 targets on the season, and Cooper Kupp met that threshold. DJ Moore going nuclear over the last couple of weeks. Terrace Marshall, interesting in that one game. And Frank Wright actually talked about not getting him the ball last game, coming off of the game that he had the week before. Garrett Wilson still maintaining a 30% target share. A.J. Brown creeping back up. Adam Thielen, Christian Kirk, and George Pickens, a man that was on the thumbnail, and that's who we will start talking about, is George Pickens. So right now he's sitting at 10th in target share in the NFL, which is pretty good over the last 2 weeks. His air yard share for George Pickens, top 2 in the league, only behind A.J. Brown, barely behind A.J. Brown. Looking at some other things like the yards after the catch per reception for GP, not really his calling card. That's one of the things that we've always talked about with Pickens, is not a big yak guy. So you don't see him popping up in this category. But first read target share for George Pickens and Kenny Pickett, 41%. So when Kenny Pickett is dropping back, he is looking at George Pickens. Now, I've got some data that I have that you guys don't have just yet, but very soon. I'll tell you right now, when I'm looking at Pickens and his Trinity score, you guys, this is very good. So let's just, for simplicity, since you guys can't see it, you don't have it, anything over the threshold of like 6.25 is very good. If you're over 7.5 Trinity score, very good. And George Pickens is well over that. George Pickens' Trinity score is sitting close to about 8.5. And when you look inside of that range, some other receivers whose score is comparable to George Pickens: Brandon Ayuk, Hollywood Brown, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, DeAndre Hopkins. Just talking about the score: Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, all within the same quadrant. Nico Collins, and a higher Trinity score than Amon-Ra St. Brown. All of those guys are in the same sort of quadrant. Now, they're not in the same spot on the plot because the other guys are scoring far more fantasy points, but that's what's happening with George Pickens right now. So even right here, you can take a look at his expected fantasy points per game for George Pickens. About 18.8 is what he should be getting based on what he's doing offensively, and he's only scoring you about 16.1 fantasy points per game. So you've got over the last 2 weeks, 4 and 5. I want to keep saying that so people are like, no, he's scoring way less than that on the season, over the last 2 weeks. So when you look at that, he should be scoring about 18. He's giving you about 16.1. So there's some room for some regression, right, to go up. Now, keep in mind, Deontay Johnson did say he was back this week, so it's going to be very interesting to see what the next couple of weeks of trend data look like for a player like George Pickens with Deontay Johnson back on the field. But this right here is very good for George Pickens. These last 2 weeks, if this data can hold, I mean, this is obviously a buy, and I'm not sure where his dynasty value is or what he would cost on a redraft market in some of your seasonal leagues. But just talking through some of the Trinity metrics and the things that we discuss, very, very positive for George Pickens. So let's talk about another player that we kind of mentioned at the beginning of this episode. An older player, old man, Adam Thielen, getting down the field, doing just a little bit of doing just about everything over the last couple of weeks for the Carolina Panthers. Moving some stuff out of the way. And let's go here. First read target share. Again, Adam Thielen, past 2 weeks, 10th in the NFL, 36.2% of Bryce Young's passes, at least the first read, going to Adam Thielen. So very good. You look at the target share for Adam Thielen, 28.8%. Right, and 30 is where we want it, but that's not bad. I mean, it's better than Diggs over the last 2 weeks, better than Ayuk, better than Travis Kelce, Jefferson, Adams. So good. It's good. It's 10th in the NFL over the past 2 weeks. Then you look at some of the other things. Like this one was very interesting to me with this player because he is kind of old. Adam Thielen, yards after the catch per reception. Where is old man Adam Thielen? Right there, 20th. So not in the top 10, but 20 is not bad. That's still higher than, again, Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin, Stephon Diggs, Michael Pittman, Jerry Jeudy. So Adam Thielen just finding ways to make it happen in this Carolina offense. And when I look at his Trinity score, again, you guys can't see that yet, but looking at Adam Thielen's Trinity score, it is very high. The points per game that he's giving you through week 5, high. The Trinity score is over that 6.25 threshold. I think that's probably what it is. Higher than Christian Kirk, higher than Calvin Ridley, better Trinity score than some of the players that the big names that we love, like Jalen Waddle, Drake London, T. Higgins. A lot of people pumping up Rashee Rice. This is a player who can help you win weeks. We've been talking about him on this show for weeks now, for multiple Trinity Report episodes. And hopefully people are kind of like, you know what? All right. I'm in on Adam Thielen, at least for this season. I'm not talking about long-term, not talking about for his career, but right now I'm in on Adam Thielen, and hopefully people realize they could be in on Josh Reynolds from the Detroit Lions as well. Josh Reynolds, he's not getting the type of target share that these other players are getting, only about 20% over the last 2 weeks. But when you look at Reynolds' air yard share at 42.5%, and then you think about what the Detroit Lions, they brought back J-Mo, first pass attempt, drops the damn ball. Josh Reynolds is still going down the field. He is getting significant volume down the field right now. And then just look at the targets per route run. Per route run, Josh Reynolds 10th in the NFL over the past 2 weeks. Yards after the catch per reception. I mean, that's not really his calling card, but take a look at this. 9th in the NFL for Josh Reynolds. Now, the first read target share, Jared Goff's going to look at Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's probably going to look at Sam Laporta before he looks at Josh Reynolds. But Reynolds is doing some of the things inside of the Trinity component that yield for very positive fantasy success. And when I'm looking at Reynolds' score, right now, Reynolds' score, nice, good and above that 6.25. It's ahead of Ridley and Kirk and Gabe Davis and Devontae Smith and Tutu Atwell. And it's above the point per game threshold trend line. So this is another player where if there was any hesitation or reservation about him early on, hopefully his play throughout the season has sort of quieted that noise, because he's going to be another wide receiver who will continue to contribute for us down the stretch, especially with Jameson Williams coming back and underperforming. So Josh Downs, let's talk about a young guy. Josh Downs. Guess we got to filter this out because he doesn't have enough targets. I don't know how he doesn't have 10 damn targets over the last 2 weeks, but let's switch this up. Let's go any targets. Let's go this last couple of weeks and filter this thing by Indianapolis Colts players. So here we go. Josh Downs. Over the last 2 weeks, Downs is getting more steam. And I believe in the last Trinity episode, we talked about Josh Downs, keeping him on your radar, producing a little bit over expected right now. He's giving you about 10.6 fantasy points per game, expected about 8.3. But that's because these other metrics here. So let's just go Indianapolis in general. So let's just go Colts, take Downs off. Let's go Colts and look at him compared to his teammates over the last couple of weeks. That's probably a better indicator of overall trend for a player like this than looking at him amongst everybody else in the NFL. Just focus on this team with Gardner Minshew. So last 2 weeks, he's second on the team in target share. Very good. Look at Alec Pierce down there, 8% target share. His Trinity score is below 2. He's not good. You don't want to plug him in any lineups. Do not be starting Alec Pierce right now. But Josh Downs, 17.6% target share, second on the team. Look at the routes run for Downs right there. Alec Pierce getting wind sprints in, runs the most routes, gets the least targets. But there's Josh Downs, over 81% route participation. Air yard share, second for Josh Downs. Targets per route run, a little bit lower for him, quite lower, actually, down there at 0.19. See what he's doing after the catch on his team. There he is, a little more, much higher than Michael Pittman, 6.25 yards after the catch per reception. First read target share, he is third behind Kylen Granson and, of course, Michael Pittman Jr. So, yes, there is some room for some upside and growth with Josh Downs. Would I want him? Absolutely. Do I feel confident enough to put him in my lineup this weekend? Like this week, I got to plug him and play him? Probably not, but I want him, and I'm monitoring that situation very closely to see if some things start to change in that offense. But looking at Downs, absolutely. Trinity scored. Let me just let you guys know where he sits. He is he's above 5. I'll tell you this: his Trinity score is higher than Drake London, Rashee Rice, Michael Wilson, Cortland Sutton, Terry McLaurin. It's a little higher than Tutu Atwell, actually. So, yes, there is definitely some room for Josh Downs to rise up if he can get some more volume in this offense, because all the other ancillary metrics that we talk about look pretty damn good. Another player they look good for, and for whatever reason, people just kind of don't like my man. They don't like him. So let's go to target share. Let's pull it up, and I know he's going to be much lower over the last 2 weeks. Much lower over the last 2 weeks. Where is he at? There he is, down here at 46. Gabe Davis. Big Gabe Davis. Let's talk about him for a minute. 16.9% target share. That's not good. Below 20, not good at all. Let me start this thing off by talking about Gabe. Gabe's got a pretty high Trinity score right now. He's scoring some fantasy points. But the score is pretty high. So let's take a look at, and that's through week 5, but let's just take a look at what he's done over the last 2 weeks. So 16.9% target share. Okay, not good. Air yard share for Gabe, 32nd, so that jumped up at 25.5%. Targets per route run for Gabe Davis, low at 0.19. Yards after the catch per reception, 52nd in the NFL. First read target share, 16%. Like, none of this is very good for Gabe Davis over the past 2 weeks, week 4 and week 5. Yards per route run, quite high. I mean, he's up there 16th in the league. So what is going on with Gabe Davis that's allowing him to maintain this sort of status, his Trinity status, although, these past 2 weeks have not been very good? So we filter this off and we just go full season for Gabe Davis, and I bet all this stuff looks better. And this is why I kind of focusing in on isolated weeks to go look at the whole picture for the season, but diving into what's happening sort of right now. Are there any changes in the offense? Let's see where old Gabe Davis lands now. So we're not even going to do all that. Let's just filter for Gabe Davis. Target share on the season, 14%. Air yard share, much higher on the season than it is right now. Right now, he's at 25%. So on the season, 30%, keeping him elevated a little bit. The yards per route run are fine. Yards after the catch per reception, better on the season than they are over the past 2 weeks for Gabe Davis. So how am I approaching Gabe Davis? Whether you look at him through a seasonal lens or just the past 2 weeks for the trends, you could see right here, scoring you close to 15 fantasy points per game. So we're loving that. We're loving that. His expected fantasy points per game over the course of the 5 weeks is 11 points per game, which significantly lower. Then you start taking away some of these weeks, right? Let's take away and just focus in on the past 2 weeks for Gabe Davis, just like we've been looking at the past 2 weeks for everybody else. Now his expected fantasy points still roughly the same. You see that? Went from 11 to 11.9. So 12 expected fantasy points per game, but he's giving you damn near 19. So he's scoring some touchdowns. He's not doing the things that should instill a ton of confidence from a Trinity perspective that this will maintain and this will continue. The efficiency is through the roof right now with Gabe Davis. So a lot of people don't care for Gabe Davis. If you can move him, and I don't know if you can or can't, this might be one where I'm like, he's producing way more than he probably should. You look at where he's at on the Trinity score graph, and it's like, yeah, this feels like some regression, and regression is coming for Gabe Davis. Best ball formats, I love them. I want them. You roll them out there. You don't have to think about when to start them. But in lineup leagues where you actually have to make a decision to plug Gabe Davis in or put somebody else in, there's quite a few receivers I would rather actively plug in. Now, a layer that is not factored into Trinity that I think we all must keep at the forefront of our mind or the back of our mind is the quarterback situation. There's a big difference between 20% targets in a Josh Allen-led offense and 20% of targets in a Josh Dobbs-led offense or a Zach Wilson-led offense, or hell, even for that matter, a Dallas Cowboys-led offense. There's a big difference. So there's some context that can be put into place, and you can say, well, Ray, that is why he's scoring, is because of the touchdowns, because of the quarterback. Very well may be true. TDs are not a sticky metric. So I want to make sure that I'm betting on the players that are doing the things to score some fantasy points and not trying to chase the result of the actual fantasy points that the player is producing. And that leads me to talk about a couple of other players who are sort of underperforming based on their Trinity yet. And I really want them. And DeAndre Hopkins is one of them. So DeAndre Hopkins, old man Nuke in Tennessee. Past 2 weeks, he's been on fire. You look at what he's done over the past 2 weeks. He is 13th in the NFL in target share at 28%. His air yard share over the past 2 weeks for DeAndre Hopkins, damn near 50%, 49.7% air yard share. Wow. Targets per route run for Hopkins. And that was air yard share that put him 5th in the NFL, only behind DJ Moore, George Pickens, A.J. Brown, and Brandon Ayuk. Targets per route run, there he is, 11th in the league at 0.31 over the past 2 weeks. Yards per route run for DeAndre Hopkins, 8th in the NFL. Yak after the catch. I mean, Nuke doesn't do anything after the catch. I mean, we kind of know that, but let's just kind of find old man. Where are you at, Hopkins? Where is Hopkins at? If we get there he is, 38. So not, listen, it's ahead of Brandon Ayuk, CeeDee Lamb, Zay Flowers, Calvin Ridley, Jacoby Myers. So not bad at all, but here you go. First read target share. Give it to him. 9% over the last 2 weeks. Then you look at Hopkins' fantasy points. It's only giving you about 16.2 fantasy points per game. The expected fantasy points for him were 15.7. So overproducing a tad bit over the past 2 weeks. But let's filter this out. And this is where I feel some good stuff could be coming for DeAndre Hopkins. Because most people, they just look at the fantasy points per game, which encompasses weeks 1 through 5. And if you do that for DeAndre Hopkins, where are you at, Nuke? Let's go fantasy points per game. And where's our boy Hopkins at? Where's our boy DeAndre Hopkins? See, we're scrolling down because he's low. Devontae Adams. Where's Nuke at? I'm committed to the scroll, so I'm not going to type in the name. He's down there. He's not that damn far. Let's just find him now. Where are you at, Hopkins? DeAndre Hopkins, 12.3. That's what he's scoring you over the course of the season. So when you open your app and you're looking around, yeah, you'll see DeAndre Hopkins only giving you 12.3 fantasy points per game. Oh, that's not too good. There he is, 42nd behind Romeo Doubs, Zay Flowers, in between Curtis Samuel and Chris Godwin. That's what he's doing over the course of the season. But you can see his expected fantasy points per game for the season is 14.1. He's giving you, 2 fantasy points lower than that. And the reason why it's expected higher is because of what he is doing in those Trinity components. The first read, the yards per route run, the target share, the air yard share, the yards after the catch per reception. When I'm looking at DeAndre Hopkins right now on the score report, I mean, he's got one of the highest Trinity scores so far through week 5 of the season, right? The only players that are ahead of him, Chase, Moore, Jefferson, Nakua, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, A.J. Brown, Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, and it looks like, Hopkins is even ahead of George Pickens. So his score alone is telling me positive regression. Like, he should be moving up as long as, Burks and the offense, if things remain where they're at. If they remain where they're at, the good thing about it is where he's producing isn't far off of what he's expected. So if he can just maintain, he's got a nice, smooth floor for you. If he can continue and improve and get a little bit better in just scoring some touchdowns, getting in the end zone, you're going to see that point per game go up, and he's going to be more impactful for you. So this is how you got to use some of this stuff. It's so easy to read. It's so easy to see. You're playing chess when you're taking this stuff into consideration, pairing it and marrying it with just common football sense stuff that's happening around the league. So we talk Downs, we talk Pickens, we talk Hopkins, we talk Gabe Davis, Adam Thielen, and some other players in this show. Last Trinity episode was damn near an hour long. I wanted to make sure I did not have you all in here that long today. So that will wrap this one. George Pickens, I want to put a buy with an asterisk by him. Let's see how things work out with Deontay Johnson before we go full-fledged in on George Pickens. Josh Downs, definitely think he's a buy. There's a lot of things inside that metric that look good, and he's played well with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. So I'm good with Josh Downs. Hopkins, I'm buying, especially on a contending team. I want DeAndre Hopkins. There's quite a few receivers underneath DeAndre Hopkins you can sell with a name like a Jahan Dotson, maybe to try to pair up and get you a DeAndre Hopkins. Adam Thielen, contender. I want him. Gabe Davis, very cautious on that one for some pullback on the bone with Gabe Davis. So I appreciate y'all tapping in. Trinity score stuff will hopefully be ready to release and start talking about and diving more into that. Make sure you tapped in, destinationdevy.com. If you appreciated this episode, this content, you know what I ask that you do. Subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, turn the alerts on, hit the thumbs up, and then comment below. Let me know what you know. Want to know about some of these players. I got scores for some of y'all rookies, too. Some of your favorite rookies did not score very high and aren't doing very good. So let me know. Maybe we can engage a little bit in the chat. But I appreciate everybody being here. Y'all enjoy. Make sure you tap in tomorrow and Friday for Wake Up. Probably going to do some betting stuff tomorrow over here on the channel for the Thursday Night Football game. And stay locked in. Got a lot of good stuff coming soon over here at Destination Devy. Y'all be easy, man. I'm out.